it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. I am here today with a little story and then some ideas for you on how to tell if a child or student of yours is getting to breaking point, is approaching the red alert moment. Sometimes it's hard to tell, and so these are some signs that will help you figure it out. First of all, I would like to tell you the little story I mentioned, and that is from my classroom this previous Sunday at church. I run a special needs classroom at my church, and actually I have 2 classrooms now. We just expanded. It's very exciting. It's also very exhausting. But I have 2 stories of 2 different kids. The first one is in our first hour classroom, and this is a little girl with a chromosomal disorder, sort of like a Down syndrome kind of disorder, but not Down syndrome itself, a different syndrome. And she has a lot of difficulty staying calm. She gets very easily worked up and has difficulty coming out of it. She gets worked up by all sorts of different things, by not being able to do something correctly, by a story that makes her sad, by difficult motor movements, all sorts of things. And we have created for her a choice board that helps her pick what she wants to do once she's calm. I made a video on that and I will link to it up there so you can take a look at it if you think that might be helpful. On the front of it, it says, first, with pictures, quiet hands, quiet feet, quiet mouth, then, and there's an empty spot, and on the back it has a lot of different choices that she can pick to reward her once she gets calm. Things like, we have 1 food item on there, fruit snacks, go for a walk, play 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. We have a little toy that she really likes. Read a book. There's all sorts of different stuff on the back that she can do once she's calm. Of course, when she's not calm, it's not safe to do any of those things, so we just have to kind of wait it out, remind her she's going to be okay, remind her that she will get over it, and help her through it, and then reward her success once she does get through it. Well, she started having a little bit of trouble on Sunday during our motor activity, our art project. And we weren't sure exactly why. And she said, I want a book, I want a book, I want to read a book. Well, it's art time. And so I said, okay, but we're going to wait till after art. We're going to finish what we're doing right now. It wasn't until later that I realized that she probably was asking for a coping strategy. Read a book is not on our list of coping strategies, but I have shared this behavior management strategy with the visuals with her mom, who has shared it with the public schools. And so I think we're all kind of on the same page using this strategy with her, because it really does work very well. But I think that they have added reading books to the list. And it's not on my list, so I didn't realize that she was probably asking for a coping strategy. I'm glad I didn't though, because she made it through that activity with a little bit of extra support. In that case, I pushed a child a little bit beyond her comfort zone, and she did great. She came through it with flying colors. And that is one possible outcome. In the second service, I had the opposite outcome. I have a little guy who is very overstimulated by noise. Surprisingly, he doesn't have any diagnoses at this time, and most of his difficulties are behavioral. We're not sure exactly why, but he's very defiant. He picks the wrong choice a lot. We absolutely love him. He's hilarious. He's very sweet, and yet that doesn't come out most of the time. So we're working on letting out the sweetness. Well, he said, I don't want to go to large group music time. I don't want to go. And I said, if it's too loud, we have earphones. We'll put on the earphones. It'll be fine. So I pushed him to come with us, which is usually the right choice because kids really love that large group worship time. In his case, he sat down on the ground really small and was kind of grumpy. And then he saw his brother and sister and he went and wedged himself in between them and then started like poking them and doing silly stuff. And so I grabbed him and pulled him back and reminded him we were there to sing and dance and we weren't there to be crazy. And he started pinching me. I actually have pinch marks, pinching and scratching, and he like on purpose looking at me. It wasn't that he needed an outlet. It wasn't a sensory thing. He just was ticked off and he wanted to show me. So he looked at me and pinched me. And I got really angry, of course, and it hurt. And so I removed him back to the classroom and used my scary voice to tell him it's not okay to hurt people we love, and we can't do that. And this kid has good cognitive ability to understand that what he did was not okay. As I was thinking about it, in this case, I realized he told me he didn't believe he could handle the class, even if what he said was, I don't want to go. I think he probably didn't want to go because he wasn't in a place that day where he could handle it. And this time I pushed the child beyond where he was capable, and it didn't go as well as it had the previous hour. Even with someone who's been in the field of special ed for a really long time, it is difficult to tell when to push a child a little bit and when it's not a good idea. And we can't really tell until the breakdown happens or it doesn't. And we have to keep pushing, but sometimes a child will fall apart. I have to remind myself, that's not my fault. You need to remind yourself, that's not your fault, unless we're purposefully pushing a kid just because we're ticked off. And that's not okay because that's not compassionate. I need to remember that I need to keep pushing the kids, and I need to keep learning what their signals are. For the rest of this video, I'm going to share with you some of the signals that I see when my students are getting to the point where they're not going to be able to handle themselves anymore. The first one is body tension. They become very stiff, they stomp their feet around, their vocal pitch rises. I don't know if you've ever seen vocal folds, vocal cords vibrate, but they're two sort of elasticy bands, and they come together, and the way that they come together is, this is where the air goes through to make them vibrate. And they are a muscle, so just like any other muscle in your body, when there's tension on them, they become firmer. And when they are firmer, they make a noise that is higher in pitch. So when you're a little upset and your voice rises, that's because your vocal cords are very tense. And so if a child's body is tense, vocal cords are probably going to be tensed as well, and they're going to make a different sound. So listen to the child's vocal pitch, and if it's getting a little high, you might be headed for trouble, and you might need to turn around and do some calming behaviors. If vocal volume rises or falls dramatically, some kids get a really quiet voice when they're about to freak out. Some kids get louder and louder. Keep track of that. Notice what happens. Maybe even document every time there is a meltdown. What happened right beforehand? What did you notice in the child's posture, volume, vocal pitch, body tension? Write those things down. Number 2 is a significant increase in self-soothing behaviors. This might be rocking, it might be humming, it might be putting their hands over their ears, it might be flapping. Whatever kind of behavior that child does that is self-soothing, if they're getting to the point where they're going to have a meltdown, then they're going to be doing a lot more of that behavior. Maybe even pinching or biting self. Number 3, blocking ears or eyes, trying to block you out in other ways. If a child normally has reasonable eye contact and then looks at you but closes eyes and looks away, or blocks out light, or puts things over her head, or puts hands over her ears, maybe even things like reciting scripts from TV or singing songs with words. A lot of times those are not just, I'm thinking of that song and I want to sing it. It's because when I'm singing that song, people don't talk to me. When I'm singing that song, I can't be expected to hear what you're saying, and I don't really want to hear what you're saying, so it's a good escape strategy. Most of the time, these are avoidance strategies, and so we need to treat them like that. If the kid needs some time away, let's give them some high quality time away, rather than fake time away where we're trying to communicate with him and he's just blocking us out. Let's make that more efficient and more effective for the child so he can come back and be ready to engage again. Number 4, disappearing verbal skills. This happens to me when I'm getting to the point where I'm going to freak out. I lose my ability to communicate effectively. This happens to kids too. Keep an eye out for that. Number 5, aggression. You know aggression when you see it. It usually doesn't come out of nowhere. We usually ignore the signs that come previous to aggression, either because we don't recognize them or because we think that the child can just manage herself if we talk her out of it. You can't talk kids out of being upset most of the time. You have to do something to give them some space, to give them some sensory input. Whatever that kid needs to calm down is probably not talking from you. It's probably something else. Once a certain stress point is reached, the child boils over and just can't return to equilibrium by herself, except in a long, drawn-out process that we can probably help if we provide the right input. I have a couple of videos about sensory strategies for helping with this sort of thing, and I think it might be helpful for you. If you see these 5 signs in a student, a client, a child that you have, then back off when you see them. Everything that we do adds fuel to this burning fire. And if we can back off, let the kid return to baseline, we're much less likely to have those behaviors that are really out of control. If your child is not in control of herself, she can't choose her own behavior, and therefore she can't just choose to behave better. I have some more videos on this topic and similar topics that are linked in the information box below. Take a peek at those if you think they might be helpful. Leave me questions and comments if you would like. I would love it. And I will see you in my next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.